could get 20 people on a camera at once, that'd be fantastic,
Yeah,
wouldn't
that would be awesome. I think we could probably get up to about five on the screen before
it?
people were so tiny we couldn't see them anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So, we're about to go.
Yeah.
Let me start in. And I believe that we
On a camera at once, that'd be fantastic,
yeah,
wouldn't
that would be
it?
awesome. I think we could probably get up to about five on the screen before
No,
so,
never.
people were so tiny. Hey everybody, how's it going? Bobby Gooden here from highontpotcoin.info. This is episode number 4 of High on Potcoin TV, and I've got someone awesome joining me today, as you can see on the video here next to me. It is Colin Davies. It is Davies, right? Not Davis
Well,
pronunciation.
we say Davis.
You say Davis, Colin
Yeah, we say
Davis.
Davis. It is spelled IES.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I know.
yeah, well, hi there, Bobby. And a big hello to everybody out there that knows me, and hi to everybody that doesn't. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, so hopefully we can fill some of the guys in who don't know who you are at the moment.
Yeah.
And there's probably a few of them out there because I know you're very well known within the UK cannabis community. You've been in the everybody would have seen you in the papers and stuff over here in the past, but the guys over in the US may not be quite so familiar with what you do and what you've been doing, and you've been doing it for many years as well. So it's great to have a chance to chat with you, man. I'm really excited
That's right,
to.
Bobby. Yeah, and it's good that people all over the world will be able to see this. Yes, I was a carpenter and joiner for most of my life, and unfortunately had a bad accident in 1995, a fall, and that led to me being hospitalised, and I was in hospital at Sheffield Spinal Injuries Hospital for some months, and I'd had a smoke, and I'd been a casual smoker. Friends of mine, when we went fishing and things like that in the past, before the accident. Well, I was in the hospital about 3 weeks, and at that point I was paralysed. There was testing with needles in the feet and everything, and there was getting no response. And this particular day, the consultant was coming round and he asked mum and dad to come along, and he wanted to see them. They come round, did the tests, usual, couldn't feel anything. And the strangest thing happened. The doctor, the consultant, pulled the curtains to the side, and then he started to talk to my mother and father how that because the brain wasn't sending signals anymore, that it was unlikely that I was ever to walk again. And that sort of, it hurt at that time, and I just remember that I was crying, but it wasn't like weeping. It was just like the tears ducts had opened on my eyes and were streaming down my face. And then they pulled the curtains back and saw the state I was in. My dad said, like, my father, he said he wanted to go outside for a cigarette. And I said, well, look, take me with you. And the beds, there was able to wheel the beds about because there was for spinal injuries patients, they don't sort of pull you in and out of bed. And the porters helped to take my father and me in the bed up to the smoking room in the hospital. And I was lay there in the bed, feeling pretty sorry for myself. And my dad's smoking a cigarette, and I just said, "Oh yeah, pass it, let me have some of that." And just smoking my dad's cigarette made me quite dizzy. A couple of drags of it after not smoking for weeks. And then there was a lady, a young lady in a bed opposite, and she sort of saw my situation, and she was shouting over to me, "Oh, you want to try this? You should try this." I looked at her, and she went on to tell me how she'd been a paraplegic for many years from an accident, and has bed sores, and she's continuously brought back to the hospital, and told me that she found that cannabis helped her more than anything to, relieve her pain and things. And I said, "Oh, well, go on then. And she passed me the joint over. I finished smoking the joint. I smoked about a good third of the joint and then was taken back to the hospital ward. I felt quite dizzy just off the cigarette, never mind smoking the joint. And I was taken back to the room, said goodbye to mum and dad. And the next morning, the nurse woke me up and she said to me, she said, "Colin, what have you been doing? What have you done?" And I said, "Well, what do you doing?" And I looked, and my legs was up in the bed, my knees had gone up in the bed, and she said, "How have you done that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And she said, "Just see if you can move them." And I attempted to put my legs down, and my legs went down. And shortly after that, I was having physiotherapy, and then I was brought out onto these walking bars and things. They never thought that they didn't think I would ever walk out of the hospital. And they told me this afterwards, that they couldn't understand how it happened. At that time, I didn't have any connection with it, with cannabis. And it may not have been the cannabis, it might have just been the shock from the consultant coming around and saying these things, because, you know, shock does a lot of things to the body. I like to think it was possibly a combination of both the things. However, a few weeks later, I left the hospital. Unfortunately, I had to leave the hospital in a wheelchair, because, of course, it was like quite hard getting all my ability back, because in the accident my spine had been shattered in 3 places. Clavicle was shattered. I was resuscitated twice. Basically, I was dead twice. And, you know, I was in a very poorly way. I'm here now. I survived it. And then, of course, I went home. I was given all these morphine things and tablets, suppositories, everything you can imagine to try and beat the pain. But, of course, the tablets then had their effects on me, and I was sort of a zombie, and I just wasn't getting any better. They was making me ill. I had the injuries, okay, but the medication was like doing far more damage to me, possibly, than the injuries I had. Yeah, wow, when I think of that. And then I connected with the cannabis thing. A friend of mine went up to the local pub and scored me £20 worth of cannabis. And I started to use that, and then was able to slowly cut down on the medication that was taking. I got interested and started to look into growing it, because at that point, of course, I was on very little benefits or anything from the state. And I went out and I bought some seeds. I think it was 7 plants for the first time, and I started to grow some plants. Just using natural light the first time, and then I got myself a light, and I was growing some cannabis and keeping myself quite happy. And then it was November, and of course, like, I don't know how it happened, it might have been a smell in those days or something, but the police came to my door, and I was just sat there, sort of just sat there, and boom, all of a sudden, like, oof, I'm surrounded by police officers. You know, bleeding on you, you're under arrest for the cultivation of cannabis, etc., etc. I said, well, I'm just growing the cannabis to help with my spinal injuries and help with my medical condition, etc. But of course, they wasn't interested in that. As far as they was concerned, I was a criminal. All the plants was taken, the flat was ransacked, and I was bundled up, handcuffed and bundled up into the back of a police van. I couldn't believe it. I just really, at that point, I couldn't believe that they would do something like this when there was a medical reason. But of course, the law, as I found out, is the law. Yeah, I was taken down to Stockport police station and charged with cultivating cannabis, possession of cannabis, etc. And then I think it was a release from the police station about 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had to walk to the bus station to get a bus home. And on the way, I passed a head shop, and there's some seeds in the window. So I went inside and I bought myself another packet of seeds. And I thought, there's no point in, crying over spilt milk. Let's just crack on with it. Yeah, and I went home and potted the plants up and started again. And that happened, it was about some 9 months later that I appeared in court for the offence, and by that time I'd already had two more crops in. Yeah, I thought it was quite safe while I was on a charge. I thought, well, they're not going to come again, and I just got on with it. And I was helping people with multiple sclerosis. Some people had contacted me after hearing about the case and everything. And when I got to court, I decided to represent myself. I'd informed the barrister that I was going to plead that it was a duress of circumstance, medical, that I did it out of medical necessity. And the barrister wasn't ready to go along with that. He said, "Whoa, no, we can't do that." And like they tell everybody, I mean, they still do that today. They say, "Oh, wait, there is no defence. You're better if you plead guilty." And the poor lambs to the slaughter, they go in front of the judge, they take the barrister's advice and they hold their hands up. And it doesn't matter if they've been using it for whatever. If they was using it for cancer, they would still be guilty in the eyes of the law. So they get talked into this, sort of giving up any defence or any jury. But I found that the jury listened to what I was saying, and I called along an independent witness, which was Matthew Ather, and he gave evidence for me that at the time it was the British Medical Journal. They'd only just discovered that we had these THC receptors in the body, and he told the jury all about that. And I told the jury why I did it, and it was because of the tablets that I was given and all the medications. They were making me more ill than the conditions that I was suffering from, and the cannabis helped me, and they understood it, and they went out and they came back and found me not guilty. So that was the first time.
And that was quite a big story at the time, right? I mean, it was in all the newspapers and everything. Like, first person to be acquitted of cultivation, I believe, due to medical circumstances in the UK. That
was right, and of course it was only just as well as being right. And
of course.
And so after that, I was contacted by a chap from Leeds and another MS sufferer up in Edinburgh, and we decided that they both lived in conditions where they couldn't grow it, and I've obviously been in trouble for growing it. So I was nominated to grow the plant, and one of the other persons would pay the electricity, and we'd just basically share everything together. One person actually paid for the PO box, and we started off what was then the Medical Marijuana Cooperative, and advertised the fact that yes, we was using cannabis and we were going to help people. We were supplying ourselves and a few others at the time. We didn't hide it. We didn't hide it at all. I was interviewed by several newspapers. Unfortunately, the police came again, the same police officers, and bust my door down. And I had 27 plants at that time. The same old routine, down to the police station. And I tell them why I did it. They charge me. Well, this time they charged me with supplying to persons unknown, which was rather strange because the people that I was supplying to, all the addresses was at the house, because we was being transparent. We wasn't trying to hide anything. It might have been a little bit, I don't know, silly at the time, but when there's an injustice, you have to stand up to it sometimes. And that's what we was doing at the time. And because we were all patients together, we was talking to each other and everything, and we all propped each other up, if you like, through the bad times. And of course, I ended up back in court, the same court, Minchell Street, Crown Court, in front of another jury. And this time it was cultivation with intent to supply, possession, etc. And they only charged me. Now, they had paperwork on the other people, but obviously they didn't charge any of the other people, which was a good thing. And also it was a good thing for ourselves, because we was able to call the patients as witnesses, and they was able to say that, yes, I supplied them, and yes, they was, part of the cooperative, and that was the whole idea behind the thing. And they gave the jury a description of how it helped them. The jury listened to us, and I was acquitted again. Now, that's when it was said in the newspapers that because of the second one, it was sort of bringing the law into disrepute, and that was 1997, not 97. Just around about the same time when Mr. Jeffrey Guy of GW Pharmaceuticals approached the government for a license, and one of his reasons was that certain jury verdicts was bringing the law into disrepute, so therefore they needed to harness this medicine, and he was the man to do it. And lo and behold, I think yesterday, after the launch of this new wonder drug that they've got for child epilepsy, they've launched that in America, and the shares have gone through the roof of GW Pharmaceuticals. It's amazing, isn't it? I get put in prison and he's a billionaire.
Yeah, it's amazing. And a lot of people don't realise that they've got massive warehouses and stuff growing cannabis in the UK right now.
And then pulling down. I'm going down there this summer, hopefully. I'm thinking of having a bit of a camping holiday. I don't know whether anyone fancies joining me.
I'm sure you can find a few people.
Yeah, I go down there and demand it, give us the oil, goddamn, give us your plans, or at least he could have a drive-through or something, couldn't he? That'd be nice, patients only drive-through, and people could just go and pick it up, and that might cut down on the costs.
Well, but still let people just have their own greenhouses with it in.
Yeah. Well, if he's not prepared to give it away, I think, truly, I honestly do believe that the cannabis plant should be liberated. I don't believe in it I used to believe in legalization and decriminalization and things, but I only believed or thought about those things because I was being brainwashed by the government, these words and things they put into my head, and it should be liberated, for God's sake. Before there were any laws, there was never any trouble with cannabis, no trouble at all. Farmers could grow it. I mean, for God's sake, Stockport, where I live, was built on cannabis. If you look in the Stockport Heritage magazines, they used to grow hemp here and twist it into rope for the sailing ships at Liverpool. I mean, we've got places called Hempshire Lane, and that's, what used to be fields of hemp. So, yeah, we've got a history of it here in Stockport, and without it, we wouldn't be here now. And now, it's just not allowed even for farming. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's just hypocritical. And when the truth does finally come out, I think the best play would be to liberate it. Everyone could grow a few plants, in your garden. You wouldn't even need lights then. You could have a little greenhouse, or everything could be regulated in a different way. I mean, people who grow it indoors to save on the fires that can be a problem with this type of thing. Well, they can have something that's certified by an electrician, and several plants in a corner, and that's all been checked. Everything's okay. You've got the right timer switch on and stuff like that. And if it was all done like that with the safety first thing, it would be a lot easier. Nobody would have to pay great amounts of money for it, and it just takes the whole market. It brings it back to human beings, because it is ours at the end of the day. Everything's been given to us, and some things have been taken away from us. well, let's liberate the cannabis plant, for God's sake. Yeah. I don't know what you think on that, Bobby.
Oh, I'm
It's a
with you
bit of a rant, then. I'm
100%
sorry.
there. I'm with you 100%
I've
there.
ranted.
So continuing on in your like history and the story, that led to you, I believe, in the year 2000, quite one of the things you're probably most well known for, and that was when you handed a lovely bouquet of beautiful flowers from the cannabis plant to the Queen herself.
Yeah, that's right, Bobby. Well, I mean, I know it's okay, isn't it, to diversify now and again. Well, after I got acquitted for the medical marijuana cooperative, I was really lucky because a grower came forward. A couple of growers came forward and approached me and said that they was prepared to grow the cannabis at a cost price for me, as long as I was supplying it to patients, etc. Well, I was like blown away with this, and they started to grow it, and I was getting like 20 ounces off one grow and 40 ounces off another, and I was just distributing it to patients at the cost price, and everything was going okay, except all of a sudden I had a lot of patients and not a lot of cannabis, because it's like 100 ounces over a 3-month period. It sounds a lot of cannabis, but when you've got 200 patients and more patients wanting it, and all with a doctor's authority, we had to look at the medical records, we had to speak to the people, and then we sent it's like a disclaimer, and it was a form where the doctor signed, and it was that the doctor knew of no contraindicators as to why their patient should not use cannabis. And basically he was just saying that he knew of no reason why they shouldn't use it. And he'd stamp that, and then we'd phone them, make sure, yes, is so-and-so a patient of yours? Yes. And then I'd be putting their things in the little film containers that the old films used to come in, and I'd go down to the film developers and get big bags full of them. And I was putting 8s and them and putting them in a jiffy bag. And I was going down to the post office with like a black bag full sometimes, and just posting them out all over the country. There was a lot of pressure at that time because of taking phone calls from patients and then doing all this. And of course, the list of patients that I couldn't help was just growing bigger and bigger all the time. And I had a friend, Lyndon Pugh, who was running a CC newspaper at the time, Cannabis Community newspaper. It was really good. And he mentioned a chap in Holland, Mr. Noel van Schaik, and a friend of his, Bernard Bruning. And Bernard was actually running what they called the Mediweed system in Holland, and he still does that to this day, Bernard. I thought, well, I need to go and see them and see if they can help, see how they do things. That's the way I do things. If there's somebody I can see about something, that's a professional, I'll go and see them. And I ended up in Holland with Noel. What a person, like, it was great. As soon as I met him, we both got on, and Noel's quite an activist, and he has been for a long time. We discussed helping on the medical side of things, and the way that the Mediweed system was working at the time in the coffee shops that was on the program was the cannabis to the patients would be a reduced amount, could be 50% off, might be 20% off. It would be dependent on the patient's situation, and they would use some of the sales from the social users from the cafe to subsidise the patients. And I thought, well, what an idea. But at the time, I couldn't do anything like that. But the thought was already there. The seed had been planted, like they say. I purchased as much cannabis at the time as I could do. put it in my suitcase, and then came back to England with it. And I had a couple of kilos then that I could distribute amongst the patients. I know I was taking a risk, but it didn't really feel like I was taking a risk because I felt so righteous about it. Why shouldn't people have this? It just seemed so crazy, especially when I was still sort of, I don't like to say half crippled, but I wasn't a well person myself at that time. I still have a lot of walking difficulties. I can't walk for any distances without suffering pain. I don't walk one step, in fact, without suffering pain, but I'll push myself to limits, and I'll try and walk a mile or 2 miles, and then I get to the second mile and I can't get back to where I started. Yeah, quite a strange thing, especially if you go like I am. I'm one for wandering in the countryside and stuff like that, and stuck in the middle of nowhere then. Well, after meeting Noel, I thought about the situation and the cafes and stuff, and then a couple of weeks later, obviously I needed to go back over for supplies for one, and I met back up with Noel, and I spoke about perhaps having a hemp museum or something like that in Stockport to begin with, but then we decided like, oh yeah, it should be a cafe, a coffee shop, and then I went back home to look for a place. I was only home a day and I found it. Wow, it was there. It's just like, it was fate. It was fate. And the place had been empty for six years previously. Before that, it had been a wine bar. And then it was in a really nice Victorian shopping parade at top of Stockport. I don't know whether there's anyone watching went there, but what a place, folks. Fantastic. And it had been empty for some six years. And I went to see the vendor, and of course he was interested in renting the place out. It had been empty for so long, and he wanted to know what I was going to do there. And I said, well, look, he said, I'll be straight with you. We're going to be opening a Dutch-themed coffee shop. And I didn't really tell him any more than that. And he said, oh, that sounds nice, Yeah, I said, yeah, tulips and windmills, stuff like that on the walls. Yeah. So, I had no money at the time or anything. And I said to Noel, I found a fantastic place. And I sent him some pictures over. And he just said, well, look, find out what they want deposit and the cash will be there. And sure enough, yeah. I think it's like £2,000 deposit or something like that. He wanted, a few months up front and everything. And so I signed the lease. I've got pictures signing the lease with the guy. Oh, excuse me. And then we plan to open. We plan to open on the 15th of September. It was a couple of weeks later than due to signing the lease. We didn't take long, and we had a lot of friends. My brother of mine, God bless him, he was helping with the decorating, and we cleaned the place up and decorated everywhere. And Noel had some furniture from the Dutch coffee shops. Noel is a coffee shop entrepreneur in Haarlem in Holland, and I would recommend that people, smokers, if you go over there, pay Noel a visit. Go to Haarlem, keep away from the centre. It's a lot better, and the weed's better prices, everything. That's how I found it. Now, where was I? I think I need a little smoke break a minute. Just excuse me.
Yeah, we were talking about...
Give a jaw a rest.
So yeah, we were talking about the how you were decorating the shops and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I've skipped it. This is what smokers do, like when they skip from one thing to another, and then we still all catch up. We know where we're up to.
Yeah, it all comes back. It feels self in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, all we've done is I've missed the Queen bit out.
Yeah, that was before then, right?
That's right. You were saying you're famous for that, and I went on to somehow we've drifted onto the cafe thing. But let's stick on the cafe because we're just there now.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I'll go back to the Queen. So, yeah, we smartened everywhere up, and Noel brought some furniture, tables, and stuff overall, and we had about 2 weeks before we was going to be opening the cafe, and we went to the police station. We wrote out what we was going to do, what the intentions were, and everything, and more or less said to them, look, if it's going to be an offence, we're telling you we're going to commit an offence, you must arrest us now or just leave us alone. And they didn't arrest us. We walked out of the police station. So we decided to, crack on with it as a full-on Dutch coffee shop. Yeah, we brought all the weed was brought over. I had at the time I had quite a lot of Dutch people staying over, and there was weed everywhere in the flat, and there was Nepalese temple balls and all different types of hash, and we was cutting it up and things and getting everything ready for opening day. And then I got a phone call from a police officer who'd arrested me before, Action Jackson we call him, and he'd arrested me on the 2 previous occasions for cultivating cannabis at my flat. And he phoned me up and he said, the chief superintendent wants me to come and have a word with you to see what's happening. I believe you're going to be opening a cafe and selling cannabis. So I said, yeah, okay, come along. And at the time there was a chap there, Marcel, one of the Dutch chaps, and he'd just bought a new video camera, a little small thing it was at the time. I said, oh, Marcel, I said, I've got to, the police are coming round, what are we going to do? I said, let's just, see what's happening. Hope that, they're not going to come and bust us, because there was no way, at this short notice, it was like 2 minutes away it was, and there was no way that we could have hid anything. So we set the video camera up, put it on record, and then I'm going to I'll have to get that to you. We'll have to get this on YouTube actually. And then there was a knock on the door. I go to the door and they open the door, and there they are. It's this Jackson and Perkins, and the 2 arresting officers. And they said, well, we've just come to see what's going on. And I asked them if they had a search warrant, and they didn't. So they shouldn't have been there. But I let them in and started to show them what we had. They was asking me about the coffee shop. He said, yeah, well, here, we've got this, we've got that, we've got the other. And they had a volcano vaporizer. And I said, see this, you use this, and there's no tobacco or anything, it's just the vapor. And I gave them a demonstration, switched it on, filled it with weed, switched it on, and the vaporizer eventually inflated. And then I took it out of the thing, and I held it in front of the nose, pulled the thing back and pressed the balloon, and it was like, it was sucking the fumes in from the vaporizer, and I was passing it to both of them there. And then I'm opening bags and saying, smell this, and what, this one smells different, this is White Widow, and this is like Northern Lights and stuff. I was really giving them an education. And then they sat down, one of them, Jackson, sat down on the settee, and he asked me what was going on. I said, well, we're going to be helping ill people, and we're going to be selling to recreational users, and profits from that supply the patients with the cannabis. He was sort of sits there, and we'll see the video, he sits there and he sniggers a bit and everything, and says, oh, it sounds like quite a good idea, this, doesn't it, to Perkins, as if they wanted to be involved in some way. And then they was saying the goodbyes and everything. And Perkins said he couldn't be there on the Saturday. Jackson said he'll probably be there on the Saturday. He said, well, that we was opening a cafe. Well, Perkins said he wouldn't be because he was going fell walking. And we said goodbye to him and didn't think anything of it. I thought, wow, we're getting a thumbs up here. He told us that they was going to be monitoring the situation, They went. This all comes back later to bite the officers on the foot, sort of thing. The video evidence, of course, from Marcel's camera was used in the court case against us. You know, we had this video, and we had all the patients was arranged, all coming down. People had come over from Holland. Bernard Bruning had come over, of course, and patients, Radio 1. It's all set up for a grand opening, and we tied a big green ribbon around the whole building, and say the TV people was there and everything, and the ribbon was cut, and patients had gone in. The place was already full before opening, before we got a chance to open anything really, and then I was actually outside the cafe helping one of the patients in a wheelchair and it all went off, and I had to try and struggle to get back in the cafe with the lady, and there was a scuffle sort of in the doorway where the police was trying to pull me out, and the patients and friends was trying to pull me in. It's like a tug of war. There's pictures there where I'm sort of trapped in this door. Yeah, it was quite a kerfuffle at the time. So the police spoilt all the opening. They just like grabbed everything that was around there, and you know, they took quite a lot of cannabis away, but we didn't sort of have everything there at the time. And I, Noel, Maruska, Martin, and several others were arrested and taken to the police station. And we was at the police station until about 1 o'clock in the morning. They let us out, and we was at that point. Neither of us was charged with anything. You know, we was also bailed to reappear to the police station, whilst they obviously thought about things. So at that point, Noel and Maruska and the Dutch people, the next day, you know, they went home because it was like, oh, what we're going to do and everything. But we just went back to the cafe and opened the cafe. At the time, we wasn't selling any cannabis because the police had took most of it, and but people started to come in, and then gradually, you know, we was able to get supplies up and going again. I was taken back into the police station and charged with possession of cannabis and allowing the premises to be used for the consumption of cannabis. And that's purely because, like, at the time, I think there's only me and a couple of others who got a chance to smoke a joint at the first arrest. And we was left alone for quite some time, and you know, we was getting a lot of good press, and people was coming from all over the world to the cafe. You know, certainly all over England. I mean, it was the nearest cafe to Holland at the time, and wow, yeah, what an experience that was. And anybody who's listening now, I'm sure you've got some good memories of that place. Yeah, and even as a social experience, a social experiment, it was fantastic. You know, it was all religions, all races, everybody mixed, because it was the herb that brought everybody together.
Everybody got along as well.
Yeah, everybody got along. We did. Yeah, it was someplace, and then of course, because of the cafe, we had to obviously carry on smuggling cannabis back into, and the customs intercepted about 3-4 kilos one time, all with my address on and other addresses that, you know, were available to me. And I was getting notices through the post, you know, that we'd seized it, and if I wanted it, I'd have to go down and reclaim it. Well, we know you can't do that. But you see, that they had obviously kept that on one side and was watching what we was doing. And then I was in the middle of an interview with the BBC local TV at the time, in the cafe, and it was a day I was due to go back up to the police station to see if they was going to charge me. And there was only about 2 kilos of cannabis in the cafe at the time, and none of it should have actually been there. We'd arranged that, you know, there wouldn't be any amounts, but because of something that happened outside our control, it ended up having to go there. And the police came in and arrested me whilst in the middle of a TV interview, and I was taken up to the police station and charged with importation and allowing the premises to be used for the consumption, distribution, etc. of cannabis. And at that point, bail wasn't available to me. They decided that because I'd committed other offences whilst on bail, that, you know, I was an unsuitable candidate, which I can understand that, I suppose, because we wasn't stopping. We didn't start the thing to stop it. You know, and some people, you know, you lose your freedom sometimes, and it's not really your fault. You know, it's just the law's fault, really. But you have to accept that. I mean, where would we be? Women wouldn't have the vote, would they, unless people had gone to prison for it? No. And there's a lot of people now, today, locked up for silly cannabis offences. You know, and what's the point? It's not actually going to teach them anything, is it? Because if they're locked up for growing cannabis or smoking cannabis or even dealing cannabis, it's not like they're going to change their job, let's so to speak, when they come out of prison. They're just going to carry on with it because it becomes a belief. You know, it's almost like a religion in itself sometimes. And it is a religion, isn't it, to some people?
Yeah, that's right. And even more so with like people who are using it as medicine, like yourself. I mean, even more of a belief then when it helps you live your life, you know.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I find that, you know, because of my spinal injuries, I'm constantly in pain. But if I smoke cannabis, I'm able to put the pain just in a little bit further at the back of my mind. You know, I'm able to almost forget about it sometimes. And that seems to be what it does. You know, it does make a difference, rather than, you know, taking a dozen paracetamol or something, or codeine. I mean, they had me on Tylex tablets and morphine suppositories and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, okay, they'll probably get rid of the pain completely, but they're poisoning your system and giving you other problems. You know, it's always better to deal with a little bit of pain and try and get rid of it with sort of pharmaceutical chemicals, I think.
Yeah,
I know
right.
that pain can be unbearable.
But, yeah, I've heard another medical user who was saying that same kind of thing, where it helps them kind of just forget the pain, but it doesn't take the pain away. And they were saying they actually preferred that to something that takes the pain away completely, because they could actually injure themselves more because they don't realise that they're doing too much, or, you know.
Yeah, there is that as well. Yeah, you can numb yourself so much that you can. Well, fortunately, I know people that, you know, have got no feelings. And a friend of mine recently, she's fallen out of a wheelchair. She's broke her leg, her arm, and smashed her teeth in. And she, well, you know, like you say, some people with the pain, it's unbelievable what it does, you know, cannabis. And even like the vaporizer, that's very good. You know, it's a more healthy way than smoking tobacco. Unfortunately, I smoked cigarettes most of my life. There was one point when I quit, and nicotine's an addiction. However, though, I mean, if you could grow your own cannabis, you wouldn't have to worry about the amounts, and that's the only thing really that, you know, it's just to mix it with, isn't it, that we need the tobacco sometimes. I could smoke pure cannabis if I had a supply of pure cannabis, I suppose, you know, but everything, you know, it's too high a price. It really is, unless you can grow your own. And, you know, I would encourage people to do that, but it can get you in a lot of trouble, you know. It's still an illegal thing, and encouraging people can be good because of the financial benefits, but it's not very nice when you get your door kicked off and your house raped, You know what I mean? It's like they're looking for cannabis and they're going through everything and they're tipping your settee up and they just destroy the place. It's like the police burglary squad, I used to call them.
Yeah, sounds about right, man.
Yeah.
So the cafe was closed down eventually, I believe, right? And then you ended up serving some time in prison. Was that because of the cafe?
Well, no. What happened? I mean, the cafe was running for over 12 months because you see, they couldn't. I was in on remand for 6 months before I got to court, and they couldn't close the cafe before they found me guilty. In effect, so the longer I stayed in prison, the longer the cafe stayed open, the longer we was, not sort of guilty of the thing. But eventually, yeah, we got to court, and I mean, that's another story. That the court fiasco. There was, I think, there was five of us charged, 5 of us on charges, all in the dock, and the other people were charged for various offences, allowing a premises to be used and supplying cannabis, etc. I had a barrister, Richard Orme, was my barrister, and I'd worked with Richard on the previous case, and he was a good barrister, and we spoke with Richard before we even opened the cafe about the possible scenarios and stuff, and we think that we probably had a good case to present under human rights and etc. Certain things that we would have been bringing up in the court case, but unfortunately, 2 weeks before I was due in court, I was notified that Richard Orme was unable to represent me because of a professional, just a reason, professional reason, that this, that, and the other, and he just sort of there was no actual reason, but that he was giving us, but he said that he just couldn't do it anymore, and was later to find out that he'd actually been blackmailed by the Crown Prosecution Service. There was a meeting at the coffee shop whilst I was in prison. I was bailed for a meeting at the coffee shop with all the barristers, and photographs was taken by one of our staff actually, of people present there. And the prosecution when they bust my flat after I was bailed, the police took these photos. The prosecution found them and saw these pictures of Richard Orme, and in the background there were people smoking cannabis. So he was sort of dragged in front of the bench, and told, warned that, excuse me, we've got this on you, and we believe that you've been present whilst criminal offences have been committed at the Cannabis Cafe in Stockport, and if you don't drop your contacts with them, we'll bar you. And that was it. And at the time, I couldn't believe it, but I can explain that because after I come out of the prison, I was able to go and pick some of the property up from the police station that they'd seized, and part of the property was the file, which was the prosecution file against the evidence against Richard Orme. Must have got mixed up with all my things. Yeah, it just shows you how twisted the system is, though, doesn't it?
Amazing.
Yeah. Wow. And the other thing during the court case was that I was appointed a barrister from down London, and he was just wanted to go through the motions. He was telling me that if you fight this case, they're going to give you 6 years in prison, blah, blah, blah. He said, just go along with things. And I wasn't really ready to go along with things. But when you're in prison, it's an ever, it's just the restriction of movement and not being near your family and everything. It's so hard to come to terms with. And we get to court and we're going through the motions, and then we call Jackson, the police officer, the arresting police officer, because of course he's the guy who's been at my flat a couple of days beforehand, and he was one of the arresting police officers at the cafe. Now, when we was cross-examining him, he was asked, do you remember Thursday, the 14th of September, Mr. Jackson? And he said, yes, I remember. And he said, do you remember going round to my client's address? And he said, no. He said, I don't remember. He said, I didn't go there. And he went on to ask Mr. Jackson, whoops, he went on to ask Mr. Jackson how long he'd been a drug squad officer. And Mr. Jackson said, well, I've been in the police force 20 years and I've always come across drugs. And he said, so if you smelled cannabis, you'd know cannabis. He said, and if you felt cannabis, you'd know cannabis, wouldn't you? And he said, yes, I would. And he was asked the same question about 4 or 5 times. And then the barrister said, well, okay, Mr. Jackson, now you definitely wasn't at Mr. Davies' address and you definitely didn't smell cannabis, etc. And he said, no, I didn't. And then, of course, we had the videotape and the tellies was brought out and we put the tape in. And the barrister said, now, Mr. Jackson, do you remember going to Mr. Davies' flat and smelling cannabis? And he said, no, it didn't happen. And then they put the video in and boom, there he is. Bang, there's a knock on the door, 2 police officers come in, and there they are, smelling and feeling the cannabis. And the judge then said, you know, whoa, stopped all the proceedings and everything, sent the jury out. Jackson was placed under court arrest for perjury at that point, and the case should have been dismissed at that point, but the judge retired everything and for the night, and I went back to the prison. And the next day, the judge told the jury, the video evidence, you have to forget that you ever saw that. It's got nothing to do with the case. We'll deal with that at another point with the officer and everything. So, and then it went on a bit more, the court case, and there was pulling all sort of dirty tricks out of the bag, and then there's one of the jurors admitted that he had an association with one of the police witnesses, and we asked for him to be removed, but the judge said no, he stays. And to be honest, at the time, it was like I knew we was on a hiding to nothing. I mean, the case went on for some weeks, but sometimes, you know, they just didn't want this happening. I mean, you know, they didn't want a cafe, they didn't want drugs and this, that and the other. And I believe that was probably down to Lord Wolf at the time. He was the man in charge. And his son was in a rehab clinic in Los Angeles, recovering from cocaine habit. And Lord Wolf blamed it on cannabis, or his son blamed it all on cannabis, that, you know, that's how he got on the cocaine. So it was quite a political situation, and at that time the jury, you know, they didn't really get a chance to hear the fair side of everything. Because of Richard Orme being taken off the case, he had the keys to all the doors, so to speak. And yeah, I was sentenced to 3 years in prison for that, and I was in for the full. You do sort of half your sentence, but, well, you're supposed to do about a third of your sentence, and then you get one of these tag things, but I wasn't allowed that because I was testing positive for cannabis whilst I was in prison. I mean, it was easier to get cannabis in prison than it was in the outside world, really.
I've heard people say that before, man.
Yeah, wow, I mean...
And so you continued to use while you was in there for your medical purposes?
Yeah. Without it, I would be back on the tablets. So yeah, I managed to keep the supply up whilst I was in the prison. And the prison officers, they didn't even see that I should be in there, you know. And I mean, when I was in Strangeways in Manchester, I was never had to have a piss test once, because they'd open the door and they'd see me and they'd say, "Oh no," and close the door, you know. So that they couldn't be fairer than that, because they knew that why I was using the cannabis, and they knew it was all a crazy situation.
Everyone in the country heard about it at the time, right? Like,
Yeah, probably.
Going on. Particularly people who were involved in the cannabis movement. It's pretty big back then.
Yeah. Well, it should have been bigger. I mean, we had there's a guy called Jimmy. He opened one in Bournemouth after then. And there's a few Worthing. It would have been nice if we could have all been open at the same time. It might have been a little bit different, but of course that doesn't really matter, because each town's got its own police force anyway. So even if you opened one in every town at the same time, they'd all be in the same trouble, because there would be no shortage of police officers, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd find enough.
Whilst I was in prison, there was some big campaigns going on, you know, regarding all the. It was a Dutch experience, and it used to be the people was the DE fenders, and the DE fenders was they was out and they was having double-decker buses, and we had laugh at the law days and hand yourself in days. I mean, we had MPs, Chris Davies, Euro MP, and Marco Capati come over from Italy, a few other MPs, and they was going to Stockport police station, and with cannabis in their hands, and they were saying, "I've got cannabis, arrest me," and they was getting arrested. I mean, there's some quite nice pictures out there and video of action that took place, which again a bit later on that bites me in the ankle, that one, when I tried to open another one in Manchester quite recently, and so we've covered that. We've covered a bit of the coffee shop thing.
So let's go back quickly before we come on to the stuff you're doing now. Let's go back quickly to the Queen part.
Oh, well, the Queen. Yeah, at the time I was running the medical marijuana cooperative, along with
back towards the beginning, right?
Yeah, it was after the second court case, when I was growing cannabis. It was 2000, around about 2000, and he was a patient on the Orkney Islands. God bless her now. And there was a lady called, a fantastic lady called Elizabeth Ivel, and she used to do quite a lot of campaigning on my behalf, bless her. And we used to send Elizabeth cannabis over to the Orkneys, and even at one time she tied herself to a sign across like a post on the island. She was a wonderful woman, and she'd actually wrote to the Queen. She let me know that she'd wrote to the Queen, and she wrote to the Queen saying that, "Oh, you should stop prosecuting Mr. Davies. He's only helping people. You shouldn't prosecute him. You should knight him." And of course, like, she gets a letter back, and she was quite excited that she got a letter back. Possibly not directly from the Queen, but accepting that there were circumstances when they understood that cannabis could be helpful with certain circumstances, like multiple sclerosis. However, if she considered that I should be knighted, she would have to do it through the correct channels, etc. And again, there's a lady in London, and she did the same. She wrote to the Queen, both independently, both not even knowing each other, and she wrote to the Queen saying a similar thing. And this lady from London, she was a titled lady, I won't mention her name, and it had quite a lot of clout when the Queen got her milk paper. She'd been in a horrific accident, this woman. And again, we was helping her, we was supplying this lady in London. And they both got these letters back saying this, and then lo and behold, they opened the Stockport Express. Her Majesty the Queen is coming to Stockport, and she's going to the Lowry Centre to open the Lowry Centre. And I'm sat there, and I'm with a friend of mine who was a photographer, like an amateur photographer. And I had a few plants growing, and I said, "Oh, Brian, how do you fancy that?" I said, "Well, go down and I'll meet the Queen, and I'll give her a sample of the cannabis that I grow for the medical marijuana cooperative." And Brian thought, "Yeah, well, it's a bit edgy, you know, but okay." And I got a plant, picked a plant out of the bedroom, and it was a big bud variety. And we took pictures of it against the door and things, and then I got some floral paper, you know, like floral paper for the put flowers in and stuff. And I thought that might just disguise it a bit, and put the green plant inside the floral paper, and had it all packed up and ready. And then the next morning, at the time I had a converted ambulance, an old ambulance, a converted half sort of camper van thing. But it was quite good for the medical marijuana cooperative. You see, I could go and visit patients in the ambulance and deliver the weed.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we went down to Stockport, got up early, went down, and Stockport was too crowded to get really near the Queen. It was quite a narrow place, so we decided not to, and we knew she was going to the Lowry Centre, so we decided to pop over there. Now we got to the Lowry Centre, and there's people putting barriers up for where, obviously, you know, the Queen was going to be going into the front entrance, and we were sort of hanging about there, and I've got this plastic bag with these skunking that's like stinking the place out. Because I mean, it wasn't dried or anything, it was fresh. It had been cut down that morning and just clipped a little bit, not clipped, we weren't, not all clipped, we wanted to keep the leaves on it and keep it as a natural plant. So I'm walking around with this bag of skunk, for a better word, and we stood looking at these barriers. This is about 11 o'clock in the morning, and then this girl comes over. Now my friend Brian, he's about 6'5", he's a tall chap, and this girl comes over and she says, "Hey, don't I know you?" You have to do that accent. I know it's corny. I'm sorry, American viewers, but you know, I have to do this accent. And she says, "Hey, don't I know you?" And I says, "Well, with that accent, I don't think so." And she says, "Yeah, I know you." She says, "You're the marijuana man." And I'm like looking at her, like, "What?" She says, "Hey, you're the marijuana man, I know you." And I'm like, "Wow." I said, "Did you hear that, Brian?" I said, "And where are you from?" And she says, "I'm from Washington, New York." Like, and I'm like, "Whoa." And I said, "You know me?" She says, "Yeah, I know all about you." She says, "That's what I'm paid to do." Like, and I'm like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" Like, and we was both like looking at her quite weird. And she said, "Well, why are you here? What are you here for?" I said, "I've come and I'd like to say hello to Her Majesty the Queen." I said, "I'd like to meet her." And she says, "Oh, really?" She said, "Well, I might be able to help with that." And I'm like, "Whoa, I'm listening then." And she went on to explain that she was part of the Royal Protection Squad. She was employed by them and part of the Royal Entourage. And she said, "Well, perhaps that could happen." And she shouted this other guy over, Tom. She said, "Tom, come here a minute." And like Tom come over, and this is a guy who had all cravat on and everything. And he was from Milton Keynes, Tom. And she said, "Tom, tell them who we are." And then Tom went on to say, "We're part of the Royal Protection Squad." And she said, "This is Colin Davies, the marijuana man." And he's like, "Oh yeah, and what's in the bag?" And like, so at that point I had to open the bag, and they both looked in the bag and they could see it, and they said, "Oh yeah, what, you want to give that to the Queen?" She says. And I said, "Well, yeah, that's all I want to do, say hello to her and give her some of the buds that I make for the patients." And she was like, "Okay," she says. She said, "Now the Queen's not going to be meeting anybody when she goes in, she's going to be having a look around the Lowry, and she'll be coming out about 2 o'clock, she said. So she said, if you'd like to come back here at 2 o'clock, she said, and she's produced a sunflower that she had. She said, I will have this sunflower. She said, you'll be able to see me. So I'm like, yeah, okay. And both Brian and myself at that point, we was whispering to each other that, oh shit, you know, because there's all these security guys around with these microphones and everything.
Yeah, I've been scared to go back.
Yeah, and we're thinking, and we're going to get busted any minute. So we decided to walk away to the ambulance and come back at 2 o'clock. And as we was walking away, I was daring look behind me because I could feel the eyes. And I thought, any minute I'm going to get a tap on the shoulder and we're busted. But no, we went and got in the ambulance and drove off. And we was both amazed. We said, oh, what happened there? And we discussed what had happened. And that, yeah, she must be genuine and all this, because it was all quite strange. And we went and sat in Lou Macari's cafe near Old Trafford football ground. And I remember I ordered pie and chips and Brian ordered something, but neither of us could eat. My nerves had just blown. I'm like, I'm trying to force chips in. And I couldn't eat. And it got to about 1:15. And I said, oh, we better go. And we went back to the ambulance. And of course, like, because we had to go on a mission, we had to spark the old joints up in the back of the ambulance. And we sat there and finished the joint, so it was another 15 minutes. And we got back there. Now, as I say, when we got there in the morning, it was just people putting barriers up. There's nobody there, really. Well, we turned this corner, pulling up, and wow, the place is packed. The car parks are packed and everything. It's about 50 people deep between where the barriers we knew was and we were stood. And we're looking at each other and we're saying, how are we going to get to the front? And we couldn't have possibly tried pushing through people. Time was going by. And then Brian nudged me, he said, oh, look, he said, well, I couldn't see because he's really tall. He said, looks like she's come out, and he could see an umbrella coming out of the doorways of the Lowry Centre. And I looked at him and I said, well, there's nothing we could do, really. And then he says, wait a minute, and he saw Laura, this was a girl's name was Laura, and she was at the front, and he could see the sunflower waving, and he said to me, he said, she's waving the sunflower. And as he said that, I saw these guys in these Macs and things with these microphones and all that, and they was all like chatting to each other and looking at each other, and 2 or 3 and 4 of them started coming towards us, and one of them grabbed hold of me, and the others started parting the people. And the other one, he was pushing me down. He said, get down there, like, and just like the sea parting, and Laura's there with the flower. And I just went straight over. I had the skunk in this bag, and I didn't hear what she said. And she said to me, you nearly missed the Queen. She said, you nearly missed her. And I thought she said, you missed the Queen. And with that, the Queen was sort of turning away. Her back was turned to us. Well, I shouted, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. And she turned round and I said, it's me, I'm Colin Davies from the Medical Marijuana Cooperative. As she's walking over to me then, I said, and I've brought you some buds, some of the things that we grow for the medical marijuana patients. And she took them off me and she had a nice smile on her face. And then the flowers was passed to the lady in waiting. And I went to sort of shake the Queen's hand, and then I was instructed that you clench your hand. The Queen sort of puts a hand on yours, and the Queen put a hand on mine. And she said, I know what you do, and you must carry on with the good work. And I was blown away at that point. And she then moved on. She was like to the next person who obviously had another one of these sunflowers, and there where the people that obviously the way that they do things, or they did then anyway, it might not be sunflowers this week, it could be something else, but you can guarantee that when the Queen goes to speak to somebody, that they are selected, and she doesn't just meet random people, because then people could just be handing her anything. And that was the reason that I was given to speak with Laura. And of course, we took the pictures after meeting the Queen. Brian had the camera, he's the photograph guy, and we've got this camera, and then we're looking around, and there's still lots of people there, lots of security, and I thought then, even still then, we could be in a lot of trouble here. So the idea was, I mean, I'm saying to Brian, did you get the picture? And of course he's saying, well, yeah, I took a picture. He said, but obviously, I don't know, we've got to develop it. This is before the digital stuff. So I said, right, well, we'll split up, I said, and I'll meet you back at the ambulance. So he went one way, I went the other, and we ended up back at the ambulance. So we sat in the ambulance, and the car park's emptying at this point because she's got in the car and gone, the Queen, so everyone's going. And we've got a few minutes to just have a quick chat. And we sat there saying, oh, do you think you've got the film? And all that. Well, we're going to do so. Oh, we said we'll go to like Max Spielman, we'll go get it 1 hour developing and see if we've got the picture. The idea was then, of course, like, we've got a picture, right, we'll go and give the papers a story, or have a story on the internet. And as we're pulling off the car park, Laura's running across this American girl, and she comes in front of the van and opens the van door, and she says, what's gone on, what's happened, you know, we want to know what's happened, what are you doing? We said, all we've done is, I said, I've given the Queen the cannabis in the bouquet, I said, and Brian's took the picture. And she said, well, what are you going to do now? And we said, oh, well, we don't know. And she says, well, wait a minute. And then she starts on a radio and stuff, and then Tom comes over, and they agreed that, well, they said that they needed the camera, and we said, well, Brian did anyway. He said, well, you're not allowed to have it, it's mine, etc. And there might be nothing in it. So I said, well, we'll go to the evening news and we'll let the evening news develop it, because it's freedom of the press and all this lot. And that was agreed to, but Laura insisted on coming along with us. And at that point, she sort of emptied a bag out on the floor and started showing us all the credentials and things. It's quite scary then when you see all these badges and like nice leather wallets and things with badges in them. And she came along to the evening news with us. Brian phoned the evening news ahead, and they had a car parking space for us and stuff, because obviously with the other court cases, I got to know a few of the reporters at the evening news from the prior arrests and cannabis things. And we sat there with the editor whilst the film had gone up, and I told the editor exactly what I've told you now about what the Queen said, etc. And the pictures came, and it was a picture that everybody's seen. And then Laura went to tell somebody what the editorial was, and then she came back a short time later. She took the things out about what the Queen said. She said, you can do everything else. She said, but you can't put that bit in. She said, but other than that, it's okay. And you're not allowed to gain financially from it. So that again was okay. We just had to give the picture rights away, which wasn't really bothered. It was more then the publicity side of things. The story then, I found this out later, that, well, straight away it was in the evening news, and then it was in all the other papers. It was in the New York Times, Sydney Herald, and all sorts of papers, and it was hitting them papers on Saturday and Sunday on the front pages of things. Now, what we understand happened is that obviously if there's going to be something like this with Her Majesty and everything, it has to go through the correct channels. But the police was not saying in the newspapers special branch was going to be coming to interview me and all sorts of things. And I went staying at a friend's in New Mills, some miles away, to get away from all the heat, expecting to get my door bust in, but nobody did that. And we believe that the Queen was informed in this way. I was told that it was in, Ma'am, I'm afraid that you've been duped by a chap in Manchester with some cannabis, marijuana, and they're wanting to put it in the newspapers. And this is before it's gone, obviously got the consent. And I believe that the Queen has said, oh, I know all about Mr. Davies and what he's doing, leave him alone. And that's when it was able to go to the papers. And of course, then the police was obviously called off because I was never once interviewed about that.
That's amazing, really, because you think that would have you arrested right away, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, going back to the court case now, before the cafe court case, Judge Fish, before the case started and everything, and he said to me, he said, you surprised me, Mr. Davies. He said, you know true well that you was being left alone while she was doing the medical marijuana. And I'm like, I said, well, I didn't really know that I was being left alone, but perhaps I was being left alone after the second bust, the second court case. Perhaps it just wasn't worth the while, but nobody come knocking on my door, saying, oh, it's all right, crack on with it. Yeah. And I've seen it since, as when I met the Queen, that was possibly the nearest thing I would have ever got to the Royal Seal of Approval, and I should have just accepted it, but I didn't even see it at the time, you see. Crazy.
Yeah, so then after the cafe and that, I see, as far as I can see, you kept your head down quite low for a while, and there wasn't really much news about you until more recently when you started with the New Way Cafe idea.
Yeah.
And also the Cannabis Health Service. So how's the New Way Cafe idea going, and how did that start, and why did you decide to suddenly start being active again?
Well, when I came out of prison, 2002, Jeffrey Guy and his crew was quite in advanced stages with things, or I thought they were, and I thought, oh, well, leave them to it, because they're going to have the medicine to people quite soon anyway. And yeah, I just kept to a little circle of close people that I know. I kept my head down because 18 months, a solid 18 months in prison was, it took quite a lot out of my life, out of my children's life and my family's life as well, not just my life and my friend's life. So 18 months, it takes a lot of sort of getting back. And of course, I was under a license for the next few years anyway. I could have been taken back to do the other 18 months at any point. But fortunately, I don't know whether it was with just keeping my head down, I've been left alone. But I've been sort of watching things that are happening and, hoping things would change. But of course, no, nothing changed really, except in America then. In America, when they sort of announced that they're going to be legalizing it in Colorado and Denver and places like that. And also in America, they've always, for the last 20 odd years, had the medical marijuana, for patients. I mean, like it or not, that's a scam. I mean, if you've got, bump me toe, I'm sorry, you Americans, but I would love that system over here, just the American system where, I've got a headache tonight, I need some like KC39, that'd be nice. And when you look at it, all cannabis use is a medicinal use. Well, even if you use it for, they call it recreational use. Well, I don't know where the recreation comes into it, because people usually like to sit down and chill. I mean, I consider recreation perhaps having a game of golf or, tennis or something, if I was able to do any of them things. And I think that most use has got its medicinal qualities, whether you say you're using it recreationally, maybe, but there'll be some way that's helping you medicinally. And that's why you're taking it as more than a recreational thing. Recreation, I can understand that from a social point of view. It's a very good social drug because it brings people together and people can chat. I mean, look at me, I can't show them. Crazy. Yeah.
So
the New Way Cafe, yeah. I've been looking at this building. I've been driving past it a few times and noticed it's another one of these buildings that's empty. Would make a really nice cafe, sat on the canal bank, and agreed with the landlord a rent. And I would have been happy just selling tea and coffee from there. That's the agreement I'd come to with the landlord. That, you know, there would be no cannabis sales there. If people chose to smoke cannabis, they would have to do it like they do anywhere at the moment, where they've got to go outside. Well, it would be a social meeting place for like-minded people, for people who have an interest in cannabis and marijuana, hemp, the whole thing, and also be able to educate people regarding the use and perhaps the harms and the better ways to use or smoke, and how to tell whether it's bad cannabis or good cannabis. And the landlord agreed, yeah, that's okay, I think it's a good idea. And I said, right. Next thing, he gets a call from the police. They'd heard that, you know, cafes, well, maybe maybe Colin Davies might be opening a cafe in Manchester, and they said that they put pressure on the landlord then, not under no circumstances to rent the cafe to me. So I made an appointment to see Inspector Spurgeon at Greater Manchester Police and explained to him the situation, that, you know, there would be no cannabis sold on the premises until there was a change in the law. However, I took Chris Davies, an MEP, along with me, and we had Inspector Spurgeon was he didn't really want to do the meeting. He said on the phone, he said, we can have a meeting if you like, but there's no point, it's not happening. And I said, well, okay. He said, his actual words was, there's no point, it's not happening. We don't want that types of people in Manchester. That's what he said. And this cafe was in the northern quarter. This is all nice young people, you know. They need a cafe more than anybody. We get to the office and he's got folders everywhere. And basically, I told him, look, there'll be no cannabis sales. And he said, well, yes, you say that now, but we know what you'll do. And in a couple of weeks, you will be doing. And I said, well, you know, you have to give me a chance. And he said, I'm sorry, I don't accept it. He said, we've had a meeting with the police that was involved in the Stockport coffee shop. And it cost too much. They spent over £3 million policing that in the time that was open. He said that there was 18 officers, sorry, there was 20 officers lost 18 months of their life on the investigation. And Chris Davies, MEP, stuck up for me and he said, look, you can't say that that's going to happen this time. Surely, you know, Mr. Davies can sell tea and coffee. And he said it's the type of people that he'll be selling tea and coffee to, and Manchester doesn't need those in the area. And I was quite disgusted with that.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So, yeah, I saw it as quite racist and like it left a bad taste in my mouth. However, it's not Inspector Spurgeon's personal opinion, you understand. This is the law, and he has to follow the law. As he went on to explain to me, it's something that has to come from government, because if somebody does something and it's reported and they ignore it, then that's the dereliction of duty, and they themselves get dragged over the coals. So yeah, that sort of put a dampener on that, because the landlord, of course, the police said if you allow him a lease, we believe you have other properties in Manchester and they could suffer because of it. And he took that as a personal threat. And I think it probably was more of a personal threat. They have to put pressure on people, I understand that. But, like, you know, wow, I've not even poured a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. I must be like, I don't know, perhaps I'm barred from opening cafes or anything. I don't think you could have a window cleaning round in Manchester.
It's amazing that they can even try and stop you from, like you said, just from selling some coffee in the shop.
Yeah, but it's not the end of that one yet. We might have a mobile coffee shop or pop-up coffee shop.
I could go around it.
Yeah.
Have to keep me posted on that one.
So, yeah, we've got lots of plans.
Awesome. So the other thing that we were, and I guess the main reason why we've got you here today is because of the Cannabis Health Service thing. that you've recently started up. And obviously, because we've been raising some PotCoins for you, your son Jay, who I know people in the community know him as King JD online, and
all right, that's news to me.
So many people will know who he is, and he's kind of got you involved in accepting PotCoin for this cannabis health service. And we've done a fundraiser on the website that I started, potfunder.com. Yeah. And you've obviously got an address on your website that you can send it to as well. So tell us all about that and what you're planning to do, as much as you can say, really, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, the medical marijuana cooperative back in the day, that was it's based on a similar lines, that it's to help patients that find cannabis to be beneficial for their treatment. We're trying to get a format going that, you know, we're going to try and speak with the government if we need to, but yeah, it's just like a statement that people need help. Here's like a portal, if you like, and go there, and if you get in contact with us, perhaps we can do something to help you with your illness. And I thought really what it needs is, I mean, I'm not very good on these websites and things like that, so it's quite basic, but you know, we've put the mission statement up on there, a few things about what I've been up to, and things about, you know, what it can cure, everything. It's all in its infancy at the moment, because you see, the important thing to me really is to get the medicine to the patient, because every day that we lose, you know, every day another patient dies, you know, or somebody just gets diagnosed with something. And cannabis, there's lots of people who have got medical conditions that use it. Now, there's lots of people that maybe have to go down the street and buy it off, I don't know, less scrupulous people. And I know people who have had the handbag snatched off them when they've been going to buy cannabis for the husband who's stuck indoors with MS. And it's to try and give people a place and a contact, even a, you know, like it says, cannabis health service. We want to try and help people who use cannabis for their health. And if it means breaking the law to do that, we're prepared to do that. We're prepared to fight for the right in the courts. And I'm quite sure I'm putting together a legal team to tackle this, just in case, because obviously we're trying to push the boundaries again and trying to have some sort of acceptance. Really, the government needs to show some compassion towards the medical use. The Americans have been able to do it with their marijuana clinics and things, so why can't this happen in England? I mean, it's almost that the English are second-class citizens. I mean, I don't know how you people in America see yourselves, but what do you think about the situation in England? I mean, do you think it's right that sort of, I don't know, 23 states of America now, you can have access to medicinal cannabis for a multiplicity of illnesses, yet over here in the UK, if you're in a wheelchair and you've got cannabis, you can be arrested. It's just a ludicrous situation. So we're trying to be like out there in the public view, perhaps in the government's view, and saying, look, we want to do this. This is what we are doing, and we are doing it. And if it leads to somebody getting arrested along the way, then we have to go to court and we have to ask the jury and we have to explain to the jury. Now, when I was explaining to the jury in 1996 and 1997 about the medicinal uses of cannabis and calling expert witnesses of the time, and the jury could see then that there was a medical use, and with all the vast reports and information that's available in today's society put in front of a jury, I don't think there's a jury in the country that would convict somebody for using cannabis medicinally, or for even supplying it to a patient for medicinal uses. That, of course, remains to be seen. But I'm certainly not. I'm not scared of it. You know, I will face that day, possibly, or maybe not, because this is what it needs now. It needs people to stand up for themselves. You know, are we? You know, have America got there because there are stronger people? Perhaps because, you know, I don't know. This country, we seem to be quite brainwashed by the government. I mean, the scandals that's gone on there. When we'd had the coffee shop, it was in after the coffee shop, in just slightly after that, in 2002. Blunkett at the time, he actually recategorized cannabis he dropped it down to Class C, David Blunkett, which was quite a good decision, and things was a lot easier then. You couldn't get as much, there wasn't as much punishment behind it or anything, and people weren't so bothered about it then. But then the government changed hands, and I have to say this because that has just been a total scam, the way that they reclassified it up to be. I mean, it was Gordon Brown's personal opinion, and he pushed Jackie Smith into reclassifying it. And
the drugs advisor at the time was Professor David Nutt, I believe.
Oh yeah, he got sacked for his opinion on it.
He told them not to reclassify it, and then he ended up getting sacked.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Hypocrisy, and these things need bringing up. I mean, Jackie Smith, she's the one that was a client. She stole £160,000 out of the British taxpayer. Her husband was watching porno and all sorts of things, and she's never paid a penny of it back. And now she gets on all these BBC TV news things and everything, you know, and Sky TV giving her opinions on things. And she's even admitted herself that she made a mistake reclassifying it, and that she didn't have the qualifications to be in the position that she was in. But, well, they just ride over all that roughshod.
Yeah, that's right. That's why they're supposed to have advisors, I guess, if it's something.
Well, yeah, what's the point in having advisors if you don't take their advice? It's crazy.
Exactly. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us up to date. I don't know, you went to see Rick Simpson recently. That'd be interesting to hear a little bit about if you've got time.
Yeah.
Obviously, Rick Simpson, for anybody who doesn't know, made
recently
Run from the Cure video.
Cool. That's right, yeah. Yeah, Rick Simpson, Run from the Cure. Watch it if you've not seen it already. Now, what a man. He's a straight-talking Canadian guy.
I've seen him in videos, and he seems very stern in his responses when people ask him questions.
He is, and he's like a Marmite. You either like the guy or you hate him. Now, I love him. I think he's a good guy.
He doesn't look like he messes around, though.
No,
he seems to the
point. He's a straight talker, and he can, you know, put some people off, I suppose. Scared me a few times. Yeah, but yeah, wow, he's had his finger on the pulse for a long time, really, on this subject. I was always somebody who'd supplied sort of, you know, just buds and things, and then I was just supplied bud with a recipe for cannabis butter. And a lot of the people with MS made the cannabis butter, and they found that was really helpful to them. And I'd been reading about Mr. Simpson's oil for some time, and watched it on YouTube, and I found it quite fascinating. I made a couple of bits of my own oil, and got to understand a bit of the science behind it. And then, like I said before, if I want to know about something, I'll go out and see the people and find out about it for myself. You know, YouTube's good, TV's good and everything, but there's nothing like the personal hands-on experience. So shortly after Christmas this year, about March, I went over to meet a friend of mine, Wernard Bruning, and Noel van Schaik over in Denmark, first of all. Now, Wernard, of course, is doing the Mediweed system, And that is a fantastic system that Wernard does. Now, you see, like in all, I suppose, pharmacopoeia, medical things, there are different ways of doing things, especially when something's quite new and experimental. And if you look back in the days when these tinctures was about, 1800s and stuff like that, there was all sorts of different bottles. There's probably as many types of bottles and manufacturers as there are bottles of beer today, different makes and things. So I went to see Bernard and his presentation and spoke with him and some of his patients and things. And as I say, I've known Bernard for many years, and I love everything that Bernard does, and he is real. He's studying it all the time in his own way, like. And Rick does it his own way, and other people. Dr. Courtney does it. I've not met Dr. Courtney yet, but I will do. He does it his way, so I don't really have a way, but I'm prepared to learn off the experience of others regarding these things. So, as I say, I went to see Wernard in Denmark, and then after that, I've heard that there was a seminar that was being done in Ljubljana, which by a group called 1J. Now 1J, they're fantastic. They're fantastic people, and they put this seminar on that was about demystifying cannabis, and hopefully I can bring that over to England. The demystifying cannabis, along with Rick Simpson, there was. There were doctors and scientists and patients and things, and I listened to everything that these people were doing, and then spoke to Rick about the oil that he has. This. I mean, people say that RSO oil, like it's Rick Simpson oil, which is now. It's like a recipe. There is one recipe, and that's Rick's recipe, the way he does it. And then other people have other recipes. Now, Rick's is very, very strong oil. And I've seen the results that Mr. Rick Simpson's had with this oil, and I've been blown away with it. There's been some amazing things happen now. You have to understand that Rick doesn't personally do this. Rick is like spreading the information and trying to get people. You have to grow your own plant and you have to make your own oil, and that's what we should all be doing. And where am I now? So yeah, I went out to meet Rick, and at the conference, I met quite a lot of patients, and one of the patients in particular that I met, Juan, a guy called Juan. He was telling Rick and the others that he had used this oil. He'd seen it on the internet, and he grew his own plants and used the oil, and that he had. It's a hard word to say, because he told me that he'd cured himself of multiple sclerosis, and I was taken back, and so were the doctors and the scientists there, and we all, well, I didn't have to tell him, because the scientists told him that we're very sorry, Juan, but you can't cure multiple sclerosis. And Juan insisted. He said, I am living proof. I am proof that I've cured myself. And they was telling him it's just a palliative thing, and you'll be in this remission phase of MS. And he explained that he wasn't, and he had the proof and everything. And I said, well, okay, yeah. And I spoke to him and exchanged phone numbers, and I said that I would like to go home and visit him, go over and visit him at his home at a later date when I had time, which was last week, actually. I went over there Friday the 13th to meet Juan, and I was picked up from the airport by the 1J people, and driven 300 kilometers the top end of Croatia to meet Juan and his family. And what a fantastic people, and he lives in a lovely place. His mother did not. She was in tears, telling me how he used to be, you know, when he couldn't walk and when he lost his feelings and all this. And the oil wasn't the first thing they'd tried. There was one treatment they had where they had 5,000 bees and they had a box full of bees, and he was stung. His mother used to get the bees out and sting him, and he had to do this course of being stung by 5,000 bees for 3 months, and that's how desperate he was. Yeah, that's how I've not looked. I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere, this cure, but I've not looked that one up. I was told about it, and that put me off because I don't like being stung. I've been stung too many times. Yeah, and then he found out about the oil, and she told me that he'd grown up plants and had made the oil, and he was taking a lot. But she was also telling me that he was tired when he was, he was sleeping a lot, which is part of the oil. You see, when it's that knockout drops, it's so strong. And 2 years later, he's still in this remission period. Which he believes himself is a cure. He told me it's a cure. He's cured himself. And I really have to believe him, because if he believes he's cured himself, a lot of the things are in your mind. And he still, however, I think he has 1 gram of oil a week, just a minute amount. And to be honest, everybody should have at least 1 gram of oil a week just to keep your system going. If it was available, and it could just be included in foodstuffs. I mean, it's known to be good.
Like a multivitamin.
It rebuilds your antibodies up and everything. It protects you. Now, if he's in remission, it's an amazing remission, because I've seen a lot of MS patients in my time, and I've seen the remission, and I've got good friends who have had MS and have passed on. Bless them. I hope they're all watching this now. I'm still here. And he's got this garden, and it's a big plot he's got, and I think he's got 80 tomato plants growing, and hundreds of onions, and he grows all his own veg. But it's not just his own veg. He grows a lot of the veg for the town where he lives. Somebody will have chickens down the road. They'll fetch the eggs in, and they take the lettuces and tomatoes and stuff. And it's a nice way of living. You don't have to go down to the supermarket every 5 minutes for something. Yeah, but I mean, he worked so hard. One day that I was there, he was out till 10 o'clock at night from in the morning, and I'm like, when he coming in, and he's like still tying tomatoes to canes. He had more energy than a normal person almost, but fair play to him. He believes that he's cured himself, and how am I to argue? Because perhaps it has happened. I don't know, but I've been told by people that, I've been told by, I think it was Greg DeHolt. He said, you can't say this until he's been clear for 10 years or 20 years. And people have told me that, you can never heal the scars from MS and everything. Well, I saw a lot of proof. I saw medical records. I saw these CAT scans and things, and where he is, he was actually on I think he got it when he was about 18. It started on him. So he had it for over 10 years, this MS, and he was on like a sickness benefit in Croatia, but because he's actually got medical records that show he hasn't got MS anymore, he doesn't have that anymore. They've taken him off that, and he has to go back to being a worker. So I don't know what proof people need, really. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. And that was the idea, you see. That's one of the ideas behind the Cannabis Health Service, because we want to, as part of that, we want to try and find out these things for ourselves. If we can raise some funds through PotCoin and through all other things, and then we can buy some of this oil, find an MS patient who wants to do the trial and, try it out, and give them the oil from all the donations that we save, and then they can go away. We can try it. We can perhaps film it and speak to the people, speak to the person's doctor and everything, and do it sort of in a transparent way, and we can find out one way or another whether it does work. I mean, it might work for some people and it might not work for others, but it might cure people, it might not. Now, it's so easy to do this thing ourselves. We don't need the government to help us with this. And if we wait for their tests on things, we're going to be waiting another 10 years. I mean, Jeffrey Guy's been going since 1996, and he's just hit a peak. GW's just hit a peak on their shares because they've put this, whatever they're calling, equidox thing out for children that have fits. Now, we can produce the thing that they're producing for €3, about just over £2 a go. Now he's going now, and people could produce it in the kitchen. We don't need tests and proof. he just wants to make money, and that's where I don't like it. I think that the cannabis plant should be liberated, and people should be able to use it as they wish. And obviously, yeah, there needs to be education towards this as well regarding abuse of it. I mean, God, if you start abusing cannabis, if you start abusing indicas, you're going to be sleeping all day. And if you start abusing sativas, you're going to be climbing the walls, and you're going to be decorating, and you're going to be cleaning up and all things like that. So you've got to try and know about these things before you become involved, perhaps. And that's where the older generations can perhaps spread it to the school children, and it should be taught in school about it, and not this hidden police thing, because criminalising it makes it more exciting for young people, to be honest. If it's a criminal offence, we'll do something bad, come on, smoke a joint when they're about 12 or something, instead of knowing that, wait, it's not because it's a bad thing, it's because you shouldn't be, because it does these things and it can stop this and stop that development. And if you speak to them on that level, I think it'll be more progressive than saying, the police will be getting you and all that, and being scared of the police. And also that just alienates young people and police. I mean, and smokers and police, we're all alienated. How many smokers would, I don't know, if you saw something happen and you've got like weed in your pocket or something, how could you shout a police officer over to report something? You can't, because they're your enemy. Because you shout, oh look, I've just seen someone who's nicked an old lady's bag down there. Oh no, you quick, get out of the way, there's a cop there. If he smells this weed, we're in the trouble. Yeah, I'm rabbiting on again then, sorry about that.
It's cool, man, I love it, it's great. It's great to hear everything. And so I think that is just about all the questions that I'd wanted to ask you about going on and everything, and up to date now. Was there anything else that you wanted to speak about at all that we haven't covered yet? Is there anything you wanted to...
Well, I've probably not said enough about this trial now. We want to raise the cash, and we want to get the oil to people. We'll do our own trials. If we can get somebody who has multiple sclerosis, who's interested in trying this, the RSO oil, or let's just call it cannabis oil. Some people seem to be offended when you say RSO oil. I don't really have a problem with it. It's a recipe. And Rick says, grow your own plants, make your own oil, watch the video. It's all there on the Run From the Cure. And if there was enough people that could do that, it'd be a perfect world. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that can't do that. Now, to produce this oil, obviously you have to use the best of the plants and everything, and it's quite an expensive process. If you could grow it yourself, you're doing it for next to nothing. I wish we didn't have to fundraise, but come on folks, we've got to raise funds. What we'll do is, once we've got a patient, we'll interview the patient and we'll go through it and do it all openly. And if for good or bad, we'll find out one way, and then we can do trials on Crohn's disease, we can do trials on this and trials on that, and find the best thing for everyone. I wouldn't really want to do trials on the younger people with the epilepsy and things, but I think the trials have been done now by enough people on most things, so I can get the capsules and stuff for the epilepsy at a fraction of the cost. I mean, you don't have to wait until the government say that the children can have them. Oh, wait a minute. I know. The 20th of September we'll give these tablets out to parents that have got epileptic children. So, in other words, you've got to have the epileptic fits until September. Well, if there's somebody out there who needs help, there's help there now. Cannabis Health Service, that's what we're there for. And if we can't help, we probably know a man who can.
Yeah, or even if just advice, I guess, for people if they've heard that
they give advice.
Cannabis might be helpful to them. I guess they should get in touch with you, and I guess patients as well if they've got stories to share that you could maybe learn from.
Yeah. Sharing information is the way to move the thing forward, but we do really have to grab it ourselves. You know, we need to stand up for ourselves, and some of us need to stand up for the people that can't stand up for themselves. You know, and that's the way it is. A lot of people, you know, they need it because of that. Because people with multiple sclerosis, I've seen people with multiple sclerosis who are in wheelchairs just be able to get out of the wheelchair, just be able to smoking cannabis and having cannabis butter. I mean, cannabis butter was a fantastic thing when, you know, back in the day when we was using it. People was like, it goes a long way, cannabis, when you make the cannabis butter recipe. And they were just having a little bit on a cracker, and it's keeping them, you know. Well, there was more supple. It like reduces the spasticity in MS patients. I've seen patients get up and dancing out of the wheelchairs that have not done that before, and a lot of it can be a psychological thing. You have to believe that there's something that can help you there. You know, if you think that things aren't going to help you, well, it's not doing your state of mind any good. And I suppose cannabis with people on MS, it enables them, similar to myself, to be able to put the pain just to the back of your mind for a little bit.
Yeah, I personally know somebody who has MS, and it's just amazing the difference between when they have cannabis and when they don't. They just they don't feel like doing anything at all. They just dead pretty much, sit around. If they smoke, like you say, they get up and walk around. I haven't seen them dancing around yet, but they'll get up and they'll walk around and they'll have go and walk the dog and things like that. You know, like it's just amazing how much they make. And to think that this like little old lady who it is, like they old, she's not really old, and to think that she could be arrested because she wants to be able to walk around is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and of course the advancements that they're making with the cancer therapies. I mean, Dr. Sanchez, the Spanish lady in Madrid, and the people in labs all over the place that have tried it on, you know, to buy these like cancer cells and everything and try it on them, and it's killing them. And I see that like the figures for cancer in this country at the moment apparently are 1 in 3 people, and cancer research expect that to go up by just 3%, and I believe there's something like 2 million people in this country that are under the diagnosis of cancer at the moment. Now, I was contacted by a person that unfortunately has succumbed to cancer. Now, they wanted to try the cannabis oil, and they was going to go ahead and try it. Now, unfortunately, I've been told today that they will not be able to use the cannabis oil because they was talking with the consultant at the hospital, and had been told under no circumstances must they take any herbal medications. Now, if they take any herbal medications, then the hospital will withdraw their services from them, because they say that their herbal medicines won't work with the chemo or whatever else that the guys have got to go through. So I thought that you're taking the choice away from people. Now, as I say, the person's chose that he's not going to do a course of oil or have anything to do with any herbal medicines now, because the hospital have said that to him. Now, that to me, that's like saying, well, you know, well, to be honest, if you use their medicines, you're going to die anyway, because that's all they're doing. That's all the chemotherapy does. They say they're buying your time, but if you look at the science behind it, it doesn't buy your time. It just actually smashes the cancer up and it goes into other parts of your body. And the chemotherapy, I mean, they give you drugs that kill dead all your antibodies, yeah, and they kill all your your bone marrow. It destroys everything, and your hair falls out, and then your whole system has to rebuild itself. Well, now cannabis, you take cannabis, what that does, that actually regenerates anything, and anything that's not right, it'll put right. Now, I don't see where the sense is now. It should be your frontline system. It should be the frontline medicine. Right, you've got cancer. Okay, well, you're going to have this oil now. Now, it might make you feel a bit high. It might make you feel sleepy. But just stick with it, and we'll have a look in 3 months. We'll give it 3 months on the oil, and then we'll reassess it. And if at that point you've still got cancer, we're going to have to go in with the laser beams and stuff. But it should be frontline therapy. Now, they won't use it as frontline therapy, and you know why they won't use it as frontline therapy. They won't use it as frontline therapy because they'll have to throw all the laser and all the chemo away, because it will just be curing so many people and keeping people alive longer than their system can. I mean, they call it, once you've got cancer, you're on the pathway. Yeah, the pathway, and we'll help you down the pathway. And all that means is they're just going to, I don't know, they're just going to try and keep you alive for as long as they can, using chemo and lasers and anything else that they can, because they get the money for all that. And that's what it is. It's a massive, massive industry, cancer industry, and it's a growing industry. I mean, for God's sake, Christie's Hospital, they're having a £10 million extension bill. They're not having an extension bill because it's less patients.
No, that's all right.
Crazy. I'm disgusted with it. I'm sorry, I get a bit wound up on this one, on the cancer and everything there. And I'm disgusted in it. I really am. I'm disgusted in the whole health system, to be honest. Doctors and a lot of them, I mean, they all take the Hippocratic Oath. Well, the Hippocratic Oath, my God. They give you poisons. You go in a chemist, it's just poisons. That's all they are. And they're trying to poison diseases in your body and stuff, and you can't do that. You need something that's more natural. And we know that it works, and we know it's all been a scam. We know that it was taken out of society because of these massive, massive pharmaceutical companies, because they can't make money on cannabis. You can't do this and you can't do that. And Jeffrey Guy, GW Pharmaceuticals, found a sneaky way of trying to do it. And it won't work. It'll all collapse, Jeffrey. If you're watching, please. It's just going to collapse, mate. And because people can do it for themselves, and the sooner we all wake up and do that and say, well, wait a minute. I tell you what, what's going to happen if I get arrested for cannabis on the street? Oh, well, I'm going to get a caution or something. Okay, so what's going to happen if the police find me growing 4 cannabis plants in my house? Well, you're probably going to get a caution the same. That's all you're going to get, because that's how limited it is now. It's not really a really serious offence, and perhaps the more people who was getting the slap on the wrist before plants, and the police would soon get sick of it, because it's already taking too much of their time up. And the only way to adjust that is, well, forget legalising, forget regulating, let's just liberate the whole thing. I mean, tomatoes, lettuce, there's no licenses for them, and everything's okay. But if you start imagine that if you banned, he says, right, okay, lettuce are banned, soon they'd be on the black market, wouldn't they? Still going to come out.
Something like aloe vera or something as medical benefits,
all the medical
plants. All the time, so many people keep applying in their house. Saying my opinion, but
and if we stand up to that and tell them we're not accepting it anymore, we're not accepting that, Assinger and DuPont and everybody lobbied the government back in the day and made you put the tax on it and stuff. So, forget about that, because they were crooked people. And that's what happens. Crooked politicians and crooked corporations and everything. And the little man at the end, he's the man who gets hurt. Because you don't think that, big people, Virgin, whoever, and all these lot, if they need treatment, they're getting it. You know, they've got the money. They can have any treatment. If somebody says, "Oh, liquid gold," you know, drink that and you'll cure this and cure that, they're the people who will be able to afford that. We won't be able to afford it. Well, this, we can afford it, because all we've got to do is stick a seed in and grow it. And if the worst thing that's going to happen is, you know, the police are going to try and get you in trouble for it, well, I'll face that. If I was dying, I would face that. I would rather break the law than die any day. And I'd rather break the law than take all this chemotherapy and everything. And people need a choice. The choice is being taken away from them in these serious situations. And now this person who I know who's had to refuse this treatment because he's been put under pressure. Now, why can't they turn around to him and say, okay, then, you want to try that? You try that and keep coming to us and we'll monitor you whilst you're trying it. But we can't buy it for you. We can't give it to you because it's illegal. But if you want to, we will still monitor you. Why can't they just be like that? You know, it's a compassionate way around it, instead of like, well, what is it? It's a threat, isn't it? It's bullying. It's bullying at the highest degree. The guy's got cancer. Oh, I was thinking about trying this cannabis because I've heard it works for some people. Well, if you try that, we're going to strike you off our books. That's a dictatorship, that. I can't believe that it happens, but it's not the first one that I've heard that from, to be honest. It isn't. And there'll be people who are watching who are saying, yeah, it's right. I've thought of having that. But think of it. If you was in that person's position and you're serious when you were told that you've got cancer, because whether you like it or not, if you've got cancer, most people are going to die. It's only a matter of time. And some small cancers are easier to cure than others, and they possibly do get rid of them with the chemo and things. But then again, if it's a small cancer, I'm sure the oil will just be gone. I don't know whether, did you see the one recently where a Croatian who had lung cancer, and he actually coughed his lung cancer up and he coughed it into his hand and they tested it, and yeah, they said that was cancerous cells, and now he's clear. Now he's clear. But it's anecdotal evidence. Everything's anecdotal. We don't believe it, you know. Well, give me anecdotal evidence any day. Yeah, there's more truth in antidotes than science, perhaps. Because there's more of it. There's more antidotes than science, no doubt about that.
At the end of the day, if somebody tells you that something worked for them, then it worked for them.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Obviously the science and great, it's all great to back it up, but I mean, the first time somebody used cannabis, it wasn't because it told them it worked.
That's right, yeah. 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 It might have been, well, O'Shaughnessy, you know, back in the 1800s, O'Shaughnessy, he was a good scientist, doctor, you know, and he was studying it and everything, and he had all sorts of concoctions. In them days, you see, you didn't need to be licensed. You didn't have all these people overseeing you and everything. That was the days before health and safety.
Yeah, you could just experiment with something and find out if it works.
If it worked, it worked, and all right. There was a lot of snake oil sellers around there that, you know, the stuff was no good, and that's another thing. You see, this is why, like, there's a lot of that in this this new industry of cannabis oil and everything. There are some unscrupulous. There's lots of unscrupulous people out there, and they could be selling people engine oil. I've heard people spending thousands and thousands of pounds on stuff, and there's stuff there on the internet, on that eBay thing that some American companies selling, and it's just industrial hemp oil with all sorts of chemicals and things in it, and they're selling it at astronomical price, and it's not really going to do any. It's not going to do you any good, I shouldn't imagine, but it might not do you any harm. And then people need to get things from the right place, or they need to grow it themselves. I mean, first and foremost, just grow it yourself. Although, I mean, I know people are getting weeks to live. Now, if you've got 2 weeks to live and it takes you 3 months to grow the plants, then that's not a situation for you, is it? You know, so perhaps everybody should just grow some when you're feeling well, and just stock it on one side. Get it done now. Put it on one side, keep it in the fridge or something, and you know, give it to a friend, give it to somebody who needs it. But people we need to grasp hold of this now and just like, let's start healing ourselves. Let's start healing each other. And well, the law's there, but you know, some laws are made to be broken and ignored. And I think we're at that time now when, you know, we just got to stand up to them, and then they may say, right, okay, we'll do something, or something might happen a little bit quicker if we start taking it, you know, ourselves and growing it ourselves. And I'm getting a bit stuck now. Getting a bit stuck now. I am, because like I get so passionate about this thing, and when I start to think about ill people and people, you know, with cancer, and then you've got there's lots of groups out there doing good work, you know, trying to help with this and everything, and it's all a lot. The whole cannabis thing, like you asked me earlier, like why did it start to come back into it and everything? Well, it seems that the whole thing is quite fragmented, and at the time I was looking at it, just before, there was a lot of this infighting going on between different groups and stuff, and I thought, whoa, you know, this is all not good for the image and everything. But everybody has got their own agenda out there, and you know, different ideas, and that's good, because that's what makes the world tick around. All different things, we've all got our own little bit to do, but I think it needs more people to do that little bit. And you know, it's stigmatized. That's the other thing, you see, the stigmatization that surrounds it. You know, oh, look at him, he's a cannabis user, oh, he's a junkie because he uses cannabis. I mean, all that, it's ludicrous. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're just normal people.
It's scary for a lot of people as well, man. Like, and I've even kind of gone through that myself just recently, as I've started making like videos and stuff about this kind of thing. And I'm thinking, is it going to come and bite me in the arse one?
Yeah.
Because I've been making these videos, but the information's got to get out there at the end of the day.
Yeah, of course it has. Without people like you, people won't know anything. You know, the more coverage that this subject can get, the better. And you know, PotCoin, it's the future. It's the future. Pot's the future. PotCoin's the future. We all need to start trading in more pot. We really do. That's really the answer. Let's all, everyone who smokes, convert the money to PotCoin. Mind you, you know, we'll have to get a few more shops accepting it, not just the grow shops.
Yeah.
Maybe pot shops, that's what we can have, can't we? We'll have our own little shops, our own little supermarkets, the pot shop, where you can buy all your munchies from, and all your weed and all your fags and cigarette papers. But you can only buy it with PotCoins.
One day.
All at discount rates.
Yep, save on those processing fees and stuff.
Yeah, well, perhaps could we start one up, pot plants? Pot plants. Wow. But they wouldn't they'd all get smoked, and there'd be no profit in that.
Yeah, that could be a problem too. So yeah, man, it's been great talking to you. I think we've been going almost 2 hours now. I'm sure.
Yeah, people got to be fed up now. Yeah.
Everything from you. So I'll just wrap up by saying to the people that obviously, if they've got, so you see as we've got a PotCoin centric audience, if you want to donate to the Cannabis Health Service that Colin is running at the moment, then you can either go straight to their website and donate there directly, or we're still running a campaign on Pot Funder. It's got a few days left. I put an arbitrary number of 10,000 PotCoins on there just to kind of thought it up straight out of my head, and within 24 hours we'd kind of smashed that target, and I'd love for it to go even higher before we pay it out to you. So if anybody's listening to this, even if you can spare like 2 or 3 PotCoins, it doesn't have to be hundreds or thousands of PotCoins that you send in. Just send in anything you can. And the same goes for the other campaign on there too, the Fragile X Syndrome one. It's both very worthy causes. If you've got 10 PotCoins, maybe split it up and send 5 to each.
Yeah, that sounds good. That, come on, send us your PotCoins and let's start these trials. Let's get people, you know, find out what works, what really works, and then once we know, let's just get it to the people. You know, people need curing now, not in 10 years' time or when they can make a profit out of it. Let's liberate the plant. Send the PotCoins and I will liberate the plant for you.
Amazing, man. So thanks so much.
That's another thing. Before you go, that's another thing. The Feed the Birds campaign, where there are plants appearing all over landmarks throughout UK. There's been plants down in London. I've seen plants in front of Big Ben and the Angel of the North.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
we're thinking of maybe doing something on PotFunder for that too. Because there's a seed shop that accepts PotCoins. So
right, yeah,
we could raise PotCoins and buy some seeds to send to those guys to do what they do. So we're here to help, and if there's anyone with any ideas on that kind of stuff, get in touch with me, man.
Yeah, let's get some plants planted outside the cancer hospitals and stuff, and show them, look, we can cure all the patients in here.
Yeah, and it grows in the cracks between the pavement slabs.
Nice one. All right, Bobby.
Yeah, thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
It's been different.
Yeah, I'm talking to a blank screen because guys who are listening can't tell that, but you can't actually see me, so.
Right, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I can't see. Yeah, look, there's a picture there.
Yeah, he's just looking at a photo of me. So yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And
all right, cheers, Bobby.
Do
thanks
keep me up to date as well.
Bob.
If there's anything that you think I can help with that you wanted to share, we can always do this again. It'd be great. Nice one. And don't forget, support PotCoin because it supports us. Amazing. Thank you. Supports me too. So I'll just finish up with that. So thanks to the Reddit community for sponsoring me with High on PotCoin and everything that I do. You've been sending me PotCoins for the last 2 months now to kind of help me out, keep me doing what I'm doing, and the time and the cost that it takes to run the website and stuff. So it's great to have your support, and it's great to see that you're coming out and supporting everything else as well that we're trying to do with this. And so yeah, just keep it up, guys. Thanks for watching. Donate to everything. If you'd like to tip me for my content, there's an address down below the video. And we'll see you all in our next video on Wednesday, where we will be talking to Russell Thomas, whose son has Fragile X syndrome, and we'll be talking to him about his story and raising the money for the Fraxar campaign that we have on PotFunder as well. So good stuff coming. Thanks again, Colin, for your time, man. It was great to talk to you. Yeah, great. Cheers, Bob. I need to go. Bye. No problem. See you soon, man. Take care, everybody. We'll see you all in the very near future. Bye-bye for now.